Welcome to step 2 of the lesson 5 of the 2013-15 classroom in a book text series. So we're on page 135 and we're working on scaling objects precisely. So, and this is going to give us exact measurements. We have to move artwork to artboards. Our client wants something exactly at this specific size because of it's going to be printed off and then on a die cut or whatever. It's good to know how to do this and understand how to do it and be able to apply it for other things. So we have a bunch of artwork underneath our artboards, and we're going to move artwork to artboards precisely. So we're going to make sure we are selected on artboard 1, which is front. And we know it's selected there, and we know it's there. And we're going to select this work here, and we're going to move it. So we're open up our transform panel. It might be up there. I've already moved mine to my panels here. If it's not there, you can go to Window, Transform. And since I use it so often, I just moved it over here in the last video. And as you can see, it's got an X measurement and a Y measurement. And we're just going to make that. First, we need to have the reference point indicator where we're referencing it. We want it to be in the first column. Remember, columns are up and down and rows are left and right. First column, first row, right there. And that's where it's referencing that corner as opposed to the center. I'm going to make it 0 and 0. As you can see, it moved it right there, no problem. We're going to do the same for artboard 3. And with artboard 6. Click on make sure the reference point's in that top corner, 0 and 0. Since we were selected on a different artboard, it didn't want to work that way. So I'm going to make sure we're selected on artboard 3. Actually, our rulers are not set up, so we need to go to we just pulled this over here so our artboard ruler for 3 was centered out here. So we're going to go do that again. We're going to select our artwork, do a free transform, and as you can see, it worked perfectly this time. And that looks kind of like our ticket. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to scale this basketball. So, let me scoot over. So we have 5, and we're just going to click and drag around it to select that object. We're going to pull up our transform, which is already there, and make sure the reference point's in the first column, first row. We're going to change the X and Y to 0, 0. Then it moved it up to that corner. What it wants it to be is at a 1/4 of an inch down and a 1/4 to the inch over. So if we click and drag, you see dx and dy, and that shows us those axes where it's moving. And I find this to be a little difficult, so I just opened up my free transform to make sure it was exact. And you can always do that. And that's how you kind of move objects precisely around the artboard. The next we're going to do is scaling objects, and that's page 137. And we're going to scale this basketball hoop. So while this basketball hoop is selected, we're going to actually pull up this free transform, which is already up. We're going to make sure that first column, first row reference point is still there. We're going to make sure this is locked. It is a locked key, not unlocked. When it's locked, it constrains everything within proportions. And we're going to make sure it is percentage of 255%. It's going to make it huge. So we're going to select all, delete, type 255%. And as you can see, it's made it huge. And that's totally fine. We're going to leave it right now. Now we're going to go find this basketball. And we are going to do a different way to scale. So while this is selected, we're going to pull up our scale tool, which is keyboard S and our keyboard right here. But we're just going to double click it, and it pulls up a dialog box. We want it to be 61%, and we're going to click OK. So it's made it smaller. We're going to do keyboard selection V, and we're just going to drag it to front. Kind of about there. And we can rearrange it later once we work on it. Our next step is working on this basketball piece. Now when we're scaling objects that are created within Illustrator, remember they have infinite rescalability. So when we scaled them up, and they didn't have any of that pixely grossness that sometimes when we scale things up in Photoshop it will have. So since this artwork is vector objects, we can scale it no problem. We can scale it the size of a billboard and it will still be beautiful, nice, crisp lines. So we're going to zoom in on artwork 4. And we're going to notice we're going to select it. We notice a stroke of 1, and that's important to kind of notice. So we're going to pull up this transform panel, which is already here. And we're going to make the reference point actually the center row and center column right there, right in the middle. And we're going to make sure it's constraining proportions, and want the width to be 3.5. However, you want to make sure scale strokes and effects is selected, and we'll see why. So with 3.5. So it's adjusted the height there, and also adjusted the stroke to 2. Since it's bigger, this stroke has been adjusted. If it wasn't selected, that stroke would still be 1 and it would look kind of off. So the next we're going to do is reflect objects. So we have 1/2 of a basketball court and we want it to be a full court. We're on page 138 to 139. We're going to pull up the reflect tool, which is your tool panel right here, or you can just do keyboard O. The reflect tool is we just place a point and we kind of flip it, and it reflects the work. So what we're going to do is kind of zoom in a little where the artwork is filling our document the best it can, and we're going to kind of hover our cursor right where it says path or anchor, somewhere on the center line. We're going to click and make that point, and as you can see it's kind of a blue line, and we're just going to flip it. We are going to hold down Shift and Option because we're making a copy, Shift because we want it to be kind of selected to 45, 90, etc. We're going to click and drag. As you can see, if I go to my selection tool and deselect, we have 2 artworks that are copied that are nested right next to each other that are just kind of reverse copies. We're going to kind of click and drag both and do a Command G to group them together. So when we move them, it moves both of those pieces. Next we're going to do is to sort objects with effect. We're on page 139. So we're going to go up to our layers and we're going to put an eyeball on the net. We're going to our artboards, double click on inside. So we're going to kind of make this triangle into sort of a kind of a cool net look, where if we put a bunch of triangles into a net, it wouldn't look good. We need to kind of have some curves with them. So what we're going to do is we're going to select just this triangle, and we're going to open up Effects, Distort and Transform, Pucker and Bloat. And if I just drag this box, I'm going to pull up Preview, and you can see it really kind of moves it around. But our selection is still a triangle. So it still holds a triangle shape, it's just the way that path between those anchor points is tilted. So it's using those handles to kind of create it to be really wonky. We want our to be -20. And we're going to click OK. And we have that. The next we're going to do is select both this circle and this triangle shape. So I'm going to just do a click and drag on both. And both are selected. I see that blue line around that circle and blue around my triangle. We're going to kind of rotate it around. So we're going to go to Object, Transform, Rotate. It opens up a dialog box, and we want Preview to be selected so we know what we're doing. We're typing 30%. Instead of clicking OK, we're going to do copy. So the next rotation is going to create a copy. So now we have two on top of each other. And go to Object, Transform. We're going to go to Transform again, and we're going to do a Command D. So you want this to be a total of 4 triangles or 12 points around your circle. What we're going to do is we're going to select just the circles, and we're going to delete and get rid of the circles. The circle helped us keep it kind of constrained, so when we did transform again, it kept it within that one place. If it didn't, it kind of just throws it around and doesn't keep it all centered at the same centered point. We're going to group our triangles, select all of them, Command G to group them. We're going to take the color from this orangey, and I'm in my control panel, over to a white. Now we're just going to shift and drag down this shape to kind of move it. And visually, use your best to kind of nudge it within the center. And you don't want pieces sticking out. It looks about centered. Cool. The next thing is for the book to go to Layers and show this text. We're going to change this text at the very end. So we're going to show it, keep it visible for now, but we will change All City to Phoenix, and then Midtown Flyers and Southland Eagles. We're going to change that over to local community colleges. So we're going to do a Command S, save our plays so far. Our next video is going to be rotating objects and sharing objects, and then working with the free transform tool.